And today we'd like to present on how we can find institutional benchmarks for an effective climate regime. We're going to introduce what the international climate regime currently looks like, what solutions can be taken from other institutions to solve problems that we have right now. Now, first of all, we'd like to introduce how things are going. What efforts are being made to mitigate climate change, and despite all that effort, what the climate regime is faced with right now. In 2015, the 70th UN General Assembly adopted Agenda 2030 with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, of which the 13th goal is to take urgent climate action right now. For more concrete action, the Paris Agreement was adopted in 2015 in the Conference of Parties 21st Conference of Parties. But however, current efforts of most countries are wildly insufficient to achieve the climate goal of the Paris Agreement. According to reports from COP26 of Glasgow, which ended just a few weeks ago, the world needs urgent climate action to limit carbon emissions, especially the top 6 emitters. Likewise, the current institutional basis on combating climate change can be characterized as lots of talk but only subtle action. There are about 3 problems as to why the current institutional basis on combating climate change is so fragile. First of all, there is a collective action problem. In an anarchic international order without centralized authority and compelling power, it is near impossible to reach consensus on a legally binding reduction scheme. Countries have already confirmed agreements, such as the Paris Agreement, regarding climate change, but there's no binding force to coerce these governments to faithfully carry out their commitments. Moreover, there are problems of how to realize the important question of common but different responsibility principle of international environment law. There is a huge cleavage between developed and developing states in interpreting what this common but different responsibility means like. Even with the definition, it would be very hard to determine the amount of surplus responsibility conferred on developed states. Last of all, the inadequacy of current technologies is another problem. With the current level of technology, it's impossible to achieve the climate goal without restriction on economic and industrial activities we have right now, which nobody really likes. So this all goes back to problem 1 of collective action. To overcome this situation, we thought about mainly 4 solutions from which we can benchmark institutions around the world. Today we would like to propose 4 solutions. First of all, taking ideas from 4 existing international institutions that we can benchmark. First of all, the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, the Universal Periodic Review System of the UN Human Rights Council, the IAEA's TC program, the African Renewable Energy Initiative, and the African Risk Capacity Insurance Initiative. First of all, on the collective action problem, it is possible to benchmark the birth of successful legal regimes, such as the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. The negotiation process of the NPT regime displayed neutral and non-aligned states, considering the NPT as an effective strategy to contain hostile neighbors. The possibility of having nuclear weapon neighbors induced middle and smaller powers to rush for an international prohibition. So collective action by more urgent parties to lead reluctant major powers to the negotiation table will be able to start creating consensus on how to realize common but different responsibility. Providing a legal imperative to step forward, such as an advisory opinion from the ICJ, will also be a big push. As Ambassador Riefenstahl mentioned just a few moments ago, the German Constitutional Court ruled that the government isn't doing enough to meet its goals for 2030. It would be a very large push forward if this happened on an international scale. Next, I'd like to invite my partner to sum up the other solutions.
Good afternoon, and my name is Jiseok, and let me continue with the second solution. So next, we can add elements of peer pressure, benchmarking the Universal Periodic Review System of the UN Human Rights Council. In the UPR system, the member nations go through the peer review on the status quo of human rights in each country. So likewise, a periodic peer review system can be introduced to the current climate regime. So countries would submit climate reports every 3 years compared to the every 5 years of the UPR system as the current climate change is rapidly going off. so which are going to be reviewed by other countries. Then each country has to provide the responses to those assessments made by other countries, the peers, and then conforming actually which components they can actually accept. So with this progressive monitoring system, we can put pressure on each country's climate action to fill up the blank of legal binding power. And moving on to the technological needs, we can foster a tech pool in which we would pool intelligence and provide public ownership of climate-related technological developments. By pooling resources which are necessary to develop energy-saving technologies and making them publicly available, the development and the diffusion of climate crisis mitigating technologies will be sped up. Referring to the International Atomic Energy Agency's technical cooperation, the TC program, we can form a global climate network pool in which countries introduce effective climate technologies and share them not only with the developing countries, but also with other advanced countries at the same time. Also, as IAEA's TC program, member countries in technical need can actually request for the technical support, and then the cooperation project can be assessed and approved by committee. So, taking advantage of this system, we can drive collective intelligence and the synergy which will accelerate the innovation of climate-related technology. Furthermore, for more effective technology diffusion and share, we can benchmark the African Renewable Energy Initiative, which is called ARRAY, of which the African Development Bank is a trustee. ARRAY focuses on renewable energy area and puts efforts to accelerate and scale up the harnessing of the African continent's huge renewable energy potential. So this ARRAY replenishes renewable energy technologies and the facilities and the infrastructures at the same time. So likewise, we can build a country channel and install specialized agencies for the technology provision to the most needed areas. So, one of the main problems of today's climate risk mitigation is the asymmetric risk burden. Those who have imposed risk upon the climate crisis by emitting greenhouse gases are not proportionately affected by the consequences right now. So if losses were to be linked directly to the climate risk makers, it would serve as a bigger imperative to limit emissions. As a model, we can refer to the African Risk Capacity, ARC, which is an insurance system that supports African countries with stable premiums when those countries are in need as a result of climate accidents. So benchmarking this system can help us understand how to enhance response capacity, adding components to balance the asymmetric risk burden and restrain emissions. So, a climate insurance scheme that collects premiums based on the emission and also on the actual reduction rates, reimbursing for damages created by climate problems would make major emitters to be more directly exposed to the outcomes they create. So this plan will function as a restraint on greenhouse gas emissions and also while effectively enhancing the resilience of the recipient countries against the climate crisis. In addition, with this insurance system, we can enhance the emergency responsibility and accessibility of the climate fund. Currently, plenty of climate funds only offers opportunities for submission of the fund support proposals only on the limited time basis, while the entry barrier is quite high for the potential beneficiaries who are looking for the new donor relations. So, therefore, we need a fund, an insurance system that can effectively respond to climate emergency situations, which operates on the basis of actual needs of the beneficiaries, while providing better accessibility through open channels for support proposal at the same time. So various other insurances focus on dispersing risk. Our proposal aims to effectively induce major states to reduce emissions while functioning as a safeguard even to those major states, as climate risks are hard to predict and also obviously would come as a burden even to those major countries. So, with these 4 solutions, which will work as a strong breakwater against the climate change, we can bring progress to the current climate regime. There is no one-size-fits-all solution, but by recalling past experiences of cooperating for institutional solutions, we can find ideas to reflect on for green recovery and our better climate future. Thanks for listening.